Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for being in attendance. It's so fantastic to see so many of you here today on what is yet another milestone for residents of Project Independence and people with an intellectual disability. I'd like to open by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we are on today, the Ngunnawal people. And I think that is particularly important when you consider why we're here, which is home, which is the land on which we live. And I think that connection to the acknowledgement of country when we are talking about home ownership is particularly important. I want to thank all of our guests who've taken time out today to be here. I realise Mondays is always a busy day in the Assembly, so thank everybody for their time, and I know there's a bit of media going on at the Assembly today as well. So being able to make time for us today is particularly important. So why is this so important? We've heard about housing for years now, and really now housing used to be, up until about 6 weeks ago when there was a war started, was the top of the thing on our agenda for problems that had to be addressed in our society. And yet the community, the demographic we support, people with an intellectual disability, have the lowest rate of home ownership of any sector in Australia. And when we started Project Independence, it was with the intent of providing a pathway for people with an intellectual disability to buy their own homes out of the disability support pension and get out of social housing, get out of rented housing, and get onto the home ownership ladder like the rest of our community seeks to do every single day. When we started Project Independence, now coming up to almost 14 years ago, we look at where we are today and we realise that vision has become even harder. We know that this jurisdictional government and governments around Australia are spending billions to ensure that people in Australia get to secure their own home. But right now, none of the schemes that are out there help people with an intellectual disability in that very unique position secure their own home. Project Independence is that model. So despite the challenges, and we've had lots as we've moved forward, here we are with now more residents ready to buy their own home. We would not be here without the support of the ACT government, who provided us the land in 3 sites across Canberra to do what no other model has done in Australia, which is to build housing for people with an intellectual disability to buy their home. So in Harrison, in Latham, and most lately here in Phillip, we now have 30 residents who are onto the home ownership ladder. What's exciting is when we think about those people who've been through Project Independence and stepped out now into more truly independent living. And we have over 15 people who've been through housing and moved out. Today, we give that story of home ownership true meaning when we see those residents today signing their equity deeds. This is yet again another historic moment in the history of Project Independence and for people with an intellectual disability. They are signing their shareholder deeds. Despite all the barriers that have been put in front of them, in front of their families, they have overcome them. They are living rich and full lives here. They're having all the joys and ups and downs that we have, and they are proving that the Project Independence model works, and they are proving it because they are strong, they are seeking their independence, and they are supported by their families and their communities to do that. So it's a really, really exciting time. Now, I can talk about Project Independence all I like, But and to be honest, if we had 4 or 5 days, you'd still be here. But we're not going to do that to you. What we are, though, going to do is I'd really like to give it a bit of a touchstone, and I'd like to invite Stephen, as Chantel's dad, to come up and say a few words and talk about what it means as a family member to be part of Project Independence.
Yeah.
So.
It's my turn to embarrass you now, Chantel. If I cry, you can drive my car, all right, Courtney? So, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Stephen, and I'm Chantel's very proud daddy and a big giant sook. Also here today is Chantel's mum, Sharon, who has always been right beside me, sharing the same hopes of Chantel's future. Firstly, thank you to the PI, and thanks to the PI family here in Phillip, and thank you to the MLAs who have taken the time to be here to witness this moment. Being here today truly matters to families like ours. Chantel's been living here at PI since June last year. That doesn't sound like a long time, but for our family, it has changed everything. Before Chantel came to PI, like many parents of our sons and daughters, our biggest worry was the future. Not tomorrow or next week, but 10, 20 and 30 years from now. Chantel relies on systems now like the NDIS and income support. They are essential, but they can feel fragile and outside of our control. As parents, we're always asking ourselves what happens when we're not here anymore to advocate, to push, to fill in those gaps. What we wanted more than anything was for Chantel to have what every adult wants: a safe home, privacy, stability, and a place where she truly belongs. Not a temporary solution, not something dependent on luck or constant intervention, but something solid and enduring. Now, since moving into PI, Chantel has grown in ways that still surprise me. She has her own space, she makes her own choices, she cooks her own meals, sometimes, but she lives her life. She's happier, more confident, and quietly proud of herself. And so are we, sweetie. As a parent, I've had to learn to step back, and that hasn't been easy, but it does feel right for both Chantel and I growing up. For me, PI has given me something just as important, and that's peace of mind. I know Chantel is safe. I know she is supported, but not smothered. I know she is part of a community that genuinely cares. And that's an amazing gift for any parent. Today's deed signing is not just paperwork. It represents security, dignity, and real ownership of her future. It means Chantel's home is not dependent on who's in government or which policy changes next year or who can shout the loudest. It gives families like ours something we really get, and that's certainty. Sorry, I'm a big sook. Lighten that up. Now to the MLAs here today. We all know you've got a crap job, all right? You spend your days dealing with complaints. You get complaints about the choo-choo, the stadium, perhaps complaints about the length of a certain member's social media posts. I'm sorry, Mark. But I hope you also know this. Long after those complaints fade, and long after you leave politics, what you have done here will endure. So thank you for your support. Chantel's life has been changed for the better, forever. And so has ours. And I know making a difference is the very reason you signed up for this crap job. So on behalf of Chantel and families like ours, thank you for making up a real, secure future possible. Thank you.
Mate, anyone who can give such a powerful speech deserves a little bit of recognition. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, mate.
We've been very lucky to be supported by the ACT government as we started Project Independence. We have, as I said, 15 residents graduate, 30 residents still here. but we still have 57 people on the wait list in Canberra alone for properties, and we don't advertise. These are all people who continue to approach us. So there is obviously a very, very urgent need for what we're doing. But we would not be here without the land that we secured from the ACT government. And I can tell you, when we were opening the very first property in Harrison, and we opened that, and we had the New South Wales Housing Commissioner turn up at that time, he said two things I want to let you know. One is ACT is probably the only jurisdiction in Australia where this could have started, because you guys get to sign off at a local level and a territory level straight away. And secondly, you've embarrassed us into making this happen. Sadly, it's a decade later and I'm still trying to embarrass them into that happening. But anyway, we're there. We're very, very privileged that Suzanne Orr, MLA, Minister for Disability, Carers and Community Services, is with us today. Now, we know that all of the MLA's time is precious, so we're going to ask Suzanne to say a few words, and then we're going to get Suzanne to sign the deed. And then I know you have to leave, but we've been able to start a little early, so if you'd like to have a look through the accommodation for a special you-only tour, we'll do that while we carry on with the rest of the procedures. So, Suzanne, thank you so much for being here today, and we'd love you to say a few words.
Hello, thank you. I would just like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Ngunnawal people and pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge all people and families with a connection to the lands of this region. Steve, thank you for your speech. It's always a bit nerve-wracking when you get to go after such a heartfelt and honest speech, but I think reflecting on what you said, it's something I've heard time and time again in association with Project Independence, having met other families and people who've lived in Harrison in particular, in my electorate. Having one of the joys of door knocking is you just get to meet everyone, and you always have, met a few other parents who've said, my kids are in Project Independence, this is really good, and champion the model that's there. And in every conversation, the same sentiment has come through in the what it offers for the people who get to move in, but also the parents in knowing that question of, what if I'm not here? Will my child be all right? And I think just one last reflection on your speech when you said your growing up journey as much as Chantel's, I think that comes through too, is the parents knowing that their kid's got to be okay, and that everyone just wants the best for their child. And I think that came through very clearly in your speech. Clearly a very close relationship between you and your daughter. I'll let you two work out if you cried and she gets to drive the car or not. But it's I think your speech perfectly summed up all the conversations I've had with people and families who've been involved in Project Independence over the years. So thank you. I think it really brings a human aspect to what we're doing here, because while we talk about homes, while we talk about where people live, it really is, it's what it does for people, for their lives, for having that independence, for having that skills, being able to form friendships across the Project Independent homes, and just having that autonomy to live your life to the best that you can live your life. And I think that's what we're all here for. So on behalf of the ACT government, I'm very happy to have contributed the land to see these projects going, and I'm sure we'll continue to hear from Project Independence, and that relationship will continue to go into the future. But let's just celebrate today, and the people getting their homes today, and everything that means. And I think just keep my remarks short so we can get on with signing the deeds and do the important part. Thank you.
Yeah. Stephen, thank you so much. That was a really, really lovely and heartfelt speech, and I can stand up here and talk about other people's... oh, yes, of course, sorry.
For sure.
Chantal, would you mind presenting this to Suzanne Orr, please, the Minister? As thanks for being here.
I should be giving the files to Chantal. Thank you very much. They're lovely.
Thank you very much. Yes, Stephen, I can stand here and talk about Project Independence and be very calm and methodical, but if you're asking me to talk about my own son's home ownership journey, then you and I are going to be sharing tissues, I can tell you now. So I get that entirely, and that was a really lovely, heartfelt speech, and I do understand the independence that it creates and what it means, not just for Chantel, but the family. I know if I look at our family, how that ripple effect goes from, you know, your own child into the family and into that extended family. So thank you very, very much. What I would like to do now is invite Mark Parton, MLA, Leader of the Opposition for the ACT and Shadow Minister for Health, to join us up here and say a few words, and then we'll do Tom, and then we'll do the signing.
Magnificent.
Thank you.
Magnificent.
Thanks.
Thanks, Glenn. I want to acknowledge Suzanne Orr, Minister for Disability, Peter Kane, the Shadow, and Tom Emerson. And I also want to recognise the members of the board, those that are here and those who aren't. Glenn Keys, David Hill, Jason Bisa, Rick Small, my former colleague Joy Birch, and thank them for their leadership, their commitment and their vision. I can still remember having a conversation about this concept more than 14 years ago, and I was a skeptic, and I said, I'm a capitalist. How's this going to work? How are the numbers going to work? And I was walked through how the numbers would work, and it's just been a remarkable effort to get from that point to where we are now. I want to acknowledge the generous support of the Canberra Hospital Foundation, Monarch Building Solutions, the Tall Foundation, the Snow Foundation. Their support has helped make the work of Project Independence possible, and it's deeply appreciated by everyone. I also want to acknowledge Michael Claessens, Chief Executive Officer, and thank him for the great work that's being undertaken by his team. Strong leadership matters, but so too does the daily work of staff who turn vision into reality, and that's what's happening here. Project Independence is doing something deeply important in our community. It provides pathways to home ownership for people with intellectual disabilities. It helps residents build the confidence, the skills and the stability that's needed for truly genuine independent living, whether they're making their own dinner or not. We all know it's not just about offering accommodation. It's not. It's offering dignity, security and hope. Project Independence describes its work as empowering lives one roof at a time, and that is exactly what is happening here. I got to say, and I was talking to Glenn about it earlier, I had the pleasure of visiting Hotel Etico at Mercure, Canberra last Friday morning, and that visit reinforced for me just how powerful this kind of work can be. And what struck me was the shared belief that people should be supported not merely to get by, but to flourish and to be the best that they can be. And Hotel Etico's Employment and Independence program speaks about giving people the skills to work and live independently, and about combining personal development with work skills and social impact. And that's powerful, and I think it sits very comfortably alongside the sort of vision which we're seeing here for Project Independence. I recently came across a book by Australian author Ben Crowe. I don't know who's heard of Ben's work, but The Mindset Coach. And his book, When the Light Gets In, reflects on how changing our perspective can actually change our lives. One of the themes that struck me early in the book was his distinction between fitting in and truly belonging. And he speaks about the power of connection and says that he prefers that word to culture because it feels more personal, it feels more human, it feels more real. And it stayed with me because connection is one of the deepest human needs we have. It's not only something that helps social groups, schools, churches, clubs or sporting teams to thrive, because it certainly does that, but it's also an antidote to loneliness and shame. It gives us belonging. It gives us validation. It gives us meaning. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are seen, and that who we are actually matters. So yes, it is about housing. Safe, stable housing matters enormously, but this is about more than bricks and mortar. It's about creating the conditions in which people can flourish. And I'm most pleased to be here today. You know, I note your words about those in the political sphere, and often we debate things that are contested. And my question about this project and similar projects is, how could this possibly be contested by anybody? So pleasure to be here. Good on you. And yeah, bring on more of it. I'm happy to help wherever we can. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do it after we sign.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Mark. And I think, I really appreciate your comments about the agreement across all colours of government or party representation. And we've been strongly supported across all areas of ACT government. And so thank you very much for that comment. I'd now like to invite Tom Emerson, independent member for Kurrajong, to join. You cannot miss Tom. Tell me, you don't need to go searching for him. Tom has been a supporter of Project Independence for us, not only while he's been an independent member, but in his previous role serving David Pocock. So thanks very much for being here as well, Tom. Over to you.
Thanks, Glenn, and thanks for the opportunity to speak this morning. I think we all feel a little bit not out of place, but this is not about us. It's about the residents who are signing these deeds today. What an exciting day! You should be incredibly proud, and it does feel like an honour to be here. In the ACT, we don't have a disability housing strategy. It's something that's been put forward as something that we do need, a dedicated strategy to ensure people with disability have access to housing, and not just any kind of housing, but secure, stable, long-term housing. This is problematic in the subsidised housing area. Glenn touched on social housing. It's problematic in the private market, and also in spaces where I think Project Independence is operating somewhere, between the two in an entirely new space. And it's an absolute credit to Project Independence for stepping into that space, seeing that there's a need, seeing there's a problem, and working hard to address it with a model that works even for the capitalists among us. Housing's now, we've legislated to make housing a human right in the ACT, which is fantastic. That's something that's on paper. It's on us as elected representatives, on us as community leaders, community members, parents, children, to actually ensure that right is fulfilled. And there's so much work. I think we all see the need to get to the place where all Canberrans feel that need is that right is being met for them. There are increasing numbers of Australians who feel excluded from the housing market, and nowhere is that truer, as Glenn spoke to, than for people with disability. And so I think it's so important that we're opening up opportunities like Project Independence is to create access, opportunities to access the housing market in meaningful ways. The certainty, stability, and of course sense of ownership that residents will be feeling today in signing this deed is absolutely critical and so powerful, and something that isn't just relevant to where it is that we live, but is the foundation really for a success and a thriving life, as Mark was speaking to as well. So it's such a credit to Project Independence. I remember visiting, as Glenn indicated, when I was working for Senator Pocock, and speaking with Aaron, Glenn's son, who was just so proud of his room, of his own space to show us through, and to own that space and to have ownership over that space. And now I've heard that he's moved into an apartment of his own in the city, which is just incredible. Already since that visit, he was incredibly proud of himself, proud of his space, and also proud of his dad. And so I think that, everyone's going to start crying, but, Steve, I think you said we've got a crap job as politicians. Well, maybe you have a tough job, but also as a father myself with a couple of young kids, this job isn't tougher than that one. And parenting is a tough gig, and to have a day like this where you can see the pride that you're experiencing, you can see the pride in Chantel and the other residents who'll be signing their deeds, I just think is so powerful. And so it's a credit to Project Independence for helping make that happen, and also for bringing us together to be able to witness it and be a part of it. Like I said at the beginning, it really feels like a privilege. Hopefully there'll be further work on both sides of politics at both levels of government to ensure this model is rolled out and made available to more people. I didn't realise there were 57 people on the waiting list already, and I really hope that we don't get stuck in the we've piloted it. It's looking really good, and then that's it because we need a new announcement. But instead, that we actually roll out models that work like this model to ensure they're meeting the need where it's felt in our community. So thanks again for having me along. Let's sign some deeds and hand out some flowers and have some baked goods. Cheers.
you. Thanks very much, Tom. Trust me, we are doing our best to make sure that we are not a pilot, and we've done a lot of work, and Michael has led the team doing a lot of work to make sure that we can scale this, not only in the ACT, but across the country. And I think for the ACT to act as that exemplar for what can be done in the world and across Australia is pretty exciting. So now what I'd like to do is we'll just go one of our guests at a time.